My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Cristani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am here with the beautiful Tara Wiskow, and she's an intuitive healer and a life reinvention expert who helps women break free from self-abandonment, self-sabotage, and the cycle of people-pleasing. Such a powerful thing to do. After transforming her own life, losing 220 pounds naturally and overcoming deep emotional struggles, she now guides women to heal by releasing limiting beliefs, negative emotions, and blocked energy that keep them from stepping into their authentic power. Through her She Rises program, Tara helps women unravel old programming, upgrade their mindset, and uplevel into the life and body they desire. Get ready for a transformative and deeply empowering conversation, and I already know we're going to have fun. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I am so honored to be here. I'm excited for our conversation. It is going to flow so well. I can feel it. And I'm just looking forward to what we put together.
Exactly. It was just like, for anyone that's curious, I give no questions to my guests before they get on. It's just, let's roll and see what happens. So that's exactly what we're doing. And intuitive to intuitive, this is going to be so much fun. And
Yes, yes.
so I guess I feel I like to share, get guests to share just kind of where they started on their journey, because I feel it just helps to people to understand why you do what you do.
Yeah, I would love to. My journey, honestly, I have to say it's not just one specific element of my life or time of my life that created who I am. And I think that goes to say for everybody. We all have a culmination of things that we go through that creates us who we are, and that's why we go through them. Most recently, me losing my sister, it was just 2 years ago. I lost her to cancer. She was 39 years old. And just like that, after 5 months and 1 week, she left us. And losing her in the instant that I lost her, she started to come to me and speak to me. Now, I've always heard about this from my grandma as being superstitious. That's what it was. She focused on two things: superstition and the devil's numbers. That was it. That's all I ever heard. And so this wasn't new to me. And I've always, losing my dad, I had my dad come to me when I was 15 in my room. And I was told at that time, it's just your imagination. And so when Trisha came to me, I thought, again, it was my imagination, but the coincidences of finding four pennies. The very first one was 1984, the year she was born. The second one was 1979, the year I was born. The third one was 1986, and that was the year that we discovered that she had a bone disease. And then the fourth was 2016, and that was the one and only time her and I ever traveled anywhere by plane. So those pennies were significant to me. And in that moment, I knew there was some relation to her being gone that I was receiving these pennies. And of course, I looked at it as she just passed. We just lost her like a half hour ago. That's why. That's it. But days following that, I was hearing her speak to me. She was giving me messages. There were clear visions coming my way. And I would receive full on sentences with who I was supposed to share these messages with. And I had no doubt it was Trisha. And so losing her just cracked me open intuitively. It opened me up, and I started to go down the path of listening to my intuition, receiving the guidance. And as I listened to her, I started to receive guidance from who I discovered were my guides. And they led me further into the path of being the healer that I was created to be.
Oh, I got goosebumps when you were sharing that. Firstly, because something similar happened to me when I was going through my spiritual reawakening. I call it a reawakening
I
because
like
it's
that.
always there, right? But it's
Yeah.
just been dormant. And and often we start to reflect on our childhood and we'll go, it was actually there the whole time. It's just we had to turn it off for whatever reasons, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
but I started getting messages from relatives that had passed, and one of them was from my dad. And I've shared this before, but the summary of it was I didn't want to hear it because I didn't know how to approach my dad with this message from my grandmother. And because I blocked it out and I didn't want to hear it, I ended up losing my hearing in my ear, my left ear, for a week. So then, what eventually, when I told him, it was really well received. But what I learned from that was if I started to get this weird blocking in my ear, it would meant I wasn't listening to something. And also, possibly someone was trying to communicate with me who had passed. So, most recently, it was my friend's late husband. And I was just cooking. I'm like, why's my hearing gone? I was like, oh, hello. And I was like, let me finish dinner and then I will sit down and I will get your message. And but it's funny because people don't realize it's kind of like, and people told me they're like, oh, once you start getting these messages, it's like you blow open this store. And that
Yeah.
someone described to me as it's like you put up a neon sign and it's like open, open, open. And
Yes.
yeah, and then everyone starts to come to you because they're like, oh my goodness, she can hear us. Let's go. So you have to learn to put up contracts and put things in place so it doesn't impede on your life and you can still function. Otherwise, especially for me, and I don't know if it's for you too, Tara, because I can feel other people's energy and emotion so much. If I don't put things in place like protection stuff and shields, I am walking through the city and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's about learning yourself, and I guess that was part of that journey, right? So once you realized it was your sister, then your guides came to you and then others would keep coming through and it just keeps snowballing.
Yeah, and it really was just like layers of being, opening up and obviously losing my sister. And she wasn't the first one that I mean, I lost my dad when I was 15. I lost my grandpa, who was my dad for the first 3 years of my life. And that's a very like confusing whole story there. We won't go into it. So I've lost individuals in my life prior, my grandma, my godmother, that are very, very important to me. And I never ever received this. And for whatever reason, now as I'm talking about it, I have energy flowing through my entire body, like all the way down my chakras, just like going out the bottom of my feet. So I feel like I'm having somebody arrive that's here to just support the conversation. And I just want to talk about it and put it out there. But I'd lost people. I'd lost people, and I'd never had this experience where I did with Trisha. And I do believe, and maybe Catherine, you also, like, it's all in perfect timing, right? I just
Exactly.
was not meant to connect with it until right here, right now, because what I discovered from my higher self in a meditation, and kind of an interesting thing, I could never meditate. Like, seriously, to
This is
sit
my
prior to
favorite
this,
thing.
I would
This is
I'd
yeah.
close my eyes and I'd always be like one eye open. I just, and then after I had my reawakening, spiritual reawakening, and I love that. I went into the deepest meditation. I'm pretty sure I was leaned over, drooling out of the side of my mouth in such a deep meditation. And my higher self met me on a park bench and said, the time is now. You are a healer. You've always been a healer, but you've needed to travel the path to come into the space of being ready to be the healer. And in that moment, I realized, wow, it, it's all in divine timing. And I've been a healer all my life, but I wasn't ready to step into it, to do it, until this exact moment in my life.
Exactly. And it's so funny. Everyone has a bench. What, like, have you noticed that? Everyone has a bench in their higher self that they meet their guides on. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a humanity thing. I'm just curious to talk about this because everyone goes and there's a bench all the time. And even when I'm guiding people, I try not to be like put my version of because my bench is near a cliff. I don't know if yours is near a cliff. No, anyway, but mine's near a cliff. So I try not to guide people too much and try and tune in what they need. But there's always a bench. Always, always.
Yes.
And if anyone is listening and they don't have a bench, please let me know because I'm really curious about this. And it's just, like you said, it's like you sit there on the bench and it's like, this is where I've meant to be the whole time. And for me, like my great grandmother, she was like my pseudo mum for the first bit of my life while my mum was working. She was waiting for me on my higher self
Oh.
bench. And I still remember I was just crying because I knew in my heart she was always with me. Like I just knew. And, and it was funny because my great grandfather, he passed before her. And I always felt he was with me. And then when she passed, it was gone. And then when I was up there meditating one day, he said, I called him in. He said, well, I was just holding the seat until your great grandmother was ready. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
oh,
Oh,
yeah. And so the more you be open about this, and you can't make this stuff up, like you said, like the pennies, how can you possibly make that up? How can your wildest imaginations could never create the things that come through to you, it's like, it's beyond anything you would ever know. And especially being intuitive healer, like you're just in the space. And I don't know if this happens to you, Tara, but I'm like, that I'll just get guidance, like, just do this. And I'm like, can I
of
do that? They're like, yeah, you can. I'm like,
course you can.
really? Yeah.
It's the of course law. Of course you can. Like,
Yes. And I'm just like, okay, all right, let's do it. And then always the clients are like, that was amazing. What happened? I was like, so we did something new. It's like,
right? Yes. And I don't know if your guides are, I have a guide. Her name is Coral, and she's a little snarky at times. Like she all of a sudden I will get like so are you listening or are you listening? Like all of it's just clear. And I'm like, whoa. Apparently I'm not. Apparently I'm just not even gonna answer this because apparently I'm not. Like,
mine like to test me. So they will, but like jokingly, like it'll be a joke at the end of it. So it will be like, hey, like, because I was practicing following my intuition, and we've got all this like Australian bush around us. And when we first moved here, I was really tapping into my intuition. So I thought, I'm going to go on an intuitive walk and I'm purely going to listen to my intuition on what way to go. So they're like, hey, you're going to go this way today. And I was like, okay. And they've taken me to some really beautiful spots in this bush. So I was like, yeah, I'd be trusting. Anyway, I'm climbing through these fallen down trees, got branches through my hair, I've got leaves. But then on the other side of it is this beautiful outcrop, like this sandstone that had broken off. And
okay.
this beautiful tree I called the heart tree. And it was so worth it. And I sat there and I was like, wow, this is like really beautiful. I'm like, okay, how do I get back now? And they're like, okay, just go this way. And there was a path. It was so clear. There was this clear path. And it took me like 2 minutes to get back to where I started. And I was like, really? And I can just hear them laughing.
Of
It's
course.
just,
Of course.
they're
They
just
wanted
like,
to, yeah, they wanted to make sure that you really would listen to them and allow them to guide you. And you did. You passed with flying colors.
exactly. But I was like, did I have to be so extreme that I've now got to like declutter my hair of half the bush that's still stuck in there, you know?
Oh,
But there's been other moments like that too. And even I still remember this one morning I was trying to leave for work and my key wouldn't come out of the door. And I was like, what is this? And instead of fighting it, I just waited. And then I'm like, thank you for the good I cannot see. Clearly, you're stopping me from leaving right now. And then I went up and I didn't do anything different. And the key came out straight away. And I was like, I don't know what that was about. Still to this day, I don't know what it was about. I just gave gratitude in the moment because I've learned to trust when we have delays like that. Even I remember I was younger with some friends from university and we were going down the South Coast. And one of our friends is like, no, we need to stop for snacks. And we're both like, oh, really? And he's like, no, 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 we need snacks. It's a road trip. We need snacks. And we're like, oh, okay. So we pulled over to this service station and he was
okay.
taking forever. And we're like, oh my goodness. Anyway, and then we're driving down and we're nearly there. And there's this really bad bend and it's known for like its accidents and things like that. And we got stopped just before, like we were a couple of cars back and there had been a horrific accident and we went, oh my gosh, if we had been like a couple of minutes earlier, we would have been in that accident. And then our friends like, that is why we stopped for snacks,
Of course.
like, but at the same time, we actually all went, like we weren't spiritual or anything. We were just like, thank you. Like we were just thank you God. Like we all said it. Like we all just knew we were saved from something really massive. And it was just again, that's where I learned that like trust the timing. Trust exactly like you said with your healing journey, with like unpacking it all. You got to trust the timing because there's things we cannot see.
I agree. And I always find it interesting, as I've now opened and I'm an intuitive healer. And so it's interesting to me how it's okay for the vast majority to be able to talk about intuition in that way. Right? Like how it's okay. Cause that's also what I've always heard is like, if you stop at a stop sign and you typically would go left and all of a sudden you hear this bell in your head that says right, that's your intuition protecting you. And it's always so interesting how we as in the human form are okay with that kind of intuitive downloads and knowledge. But when it comes to the rest of it, like the pennies with the 4 years on it that are very significant, it's not possible for that to be.
Oh,
It's
it's
always
just a
interesting.
coincidence. It's just a
Yes.
coincidence.
Yes.
Like, how many coincidences do you need? Like, you know,
Right. Right? Exactly. And when the pennies are like right there, like you
and
cannot not
four,
see
four, not
4 of them.
one,
Yeah.
four,
Yeah.
four,
4.
you know,
Yeah,
uh,
I know.
exactly. And it's so interesting too. This is like when things go missing, right? And so my son and I like we'll go honor the earth elements in our garden and especially the fairies. If anyone likes fairies or like yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, when you start doing that, you have to keep doing that. And it's funny because our fairies are they're normally cheeky, but ours are very cheeky. And my husband doesn't believe in it and his stuff goes missing all the time. Like all his tools, he goes, "Oh, it's the cockatoos," and I'm like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "It's the fairies." And it's funny because my son's like gardening gloves, they went missing, and we started honoring the fairies. And we were just going for this walk, and mysteriously we found his gloves like on this rock, like almost placed there. And we were like, "Oh, thank you, fairies." We both just went, "Thank you, fairies." And then he got these new blocks, like these little magnet blocks, and he loved them so much. Like we took them out, we went to dinner and he like was playing with them. And we came back and he's counting them. He's like, "Oh no, there's some missing." So I'm like, "Really?" And so we like pulling the car apart, we ring the restaurant. We're like, "Oh my gosh, where are these blocks?" And then we come back in and these blocks are perfectly stacked in the middle. And I said, first of all, I did to my husband, "Did you put these blocks here?" "No, I don't know what you're talking about." "Okay." And then my son and I both went, "The fairies." And then the next day we're like, we need to go give them something. So we made something and went and gave them something because, once you start to pay attention to those things, you realize nothing is kind of accidental or coincidental. It's
No.
like all divine timing and it's all about trusting that what your intuition initially says before the logic kicks in is what it's really about.
Yes, yes, so true. I love that your husband does not believe this or because my husband's the same. He is my biggest. I actually did a reel and put this out there. It's the funniest thing in the world to me, but he supports me, my biggest supporter. If I were to say whatever, he'd be like, okay, okay. Like he's always standing behind me, but he's got this mentality of if I can't see it, it's not possible, it doesn't exist. So I'm like, well, that really, like, right? I'm like, okay, this,
Same.
I
He
can't
actually
see what,
said that. He actually
yes,
said that the other week, those exact words. He goes, "If I can't see with my own eyes, I don't believe it's real." And I'm like,
yes.
what?
That is what my husband says. And I'm like, "See, you see stuff with your own eyes that I cannot see. And I believe you. Like this, and I'm finally I listened to this video of this gal that was talking about trying to convince people to see your way as an intuitive. And she said, if you try to convince them, you're taking them off path, and therefore you need to just let them be on their path because that's where they're meant to be. And I'm like, oh, fine, okay, like, all
Exactly. But
right.
the funniest thing, Tara, is that my hubby, he does like he knows about Reiki, so he does Reiki and he works with high frequencies. So he
It's the same thing
understands there are
almost.
things you can't see that happen. But it's just, he, again, like exactly what the video said, you have to let people stay on their path and work through it. And it's such a important thing you bring up, especially as an intuitive healer. We can't push people beyond what they're meant to be at, and we can't give that information too early, because that's kind of our spiritual responsibility, is to
So
check
true.
back in and say, okay, they're here for this. We can give them this little bits of information to help them on their path, but we can't give them everything, because then it's shortcutting it and they're going to miss out on what they need to learn.
Yeah, so true. And and my husband, I don't know about your husband, but he's starting to ask questions. And so it's really hard though, because I just want to put full throttle, like just spill it all out. But I know when he's gotten to the point where, okay, he's heard enough. Because then the questions start to come more with a more like not judgmental, but lack of belief tone to them versus in the beginning. So then that's my cue of, okay, I've filled him up with as much information as he can possibly handle right now, and we're tipping overboard. So now I need to just start pulling back, and when he's ready, he'll ask the next set of questions. So
Things,
it's with
yeah.
time. It's with time, and maybe never. Some will never open up to it, and that's okay too, because that's their journey. But I'm finding with my husband that it's just in his own timing when he's
Yeah.
ready.
And it's like that scale of awareness, right? Like, so if you have someone coming in at 1, you're not going to start talking to them about 10 about like galactics and things like that, right? You're going to come in at like, oh, okay, so we're made of energy and this is how it works. And we can actually show you how that works. And then once they accept that, then you go to level 2 and then you go to level 3. And one day you might get to level 10, but it's not right now, so it's, and it's funny because I don't know about you as well, Tara, but you just know how to pitch a conversation at people so they don't lose you. And I believe truly it comes from spirit guiding you what to say and what not to say, because there's certain things that you're like, you'll go, hang on, no, that's going to lose them. And I don't want to lose them, because we're in a really safe place where they can be vulnerable and I don't want them to
Yeah.
retreat back in, so it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think yes, when you actually listen to your intuition and your guides, at first, like I I have to back that up. In other things that I've been passionate about, like weight loss coach and nutrition coaching, all things like that, I was just a wide open well that would just pour knowledge. Like I was just so excited, and my excitement, I just couldn't contain it. Ever since I've opened up and I've taken in the calling of being a healer, I've felt more reserved of not being so forthright with it. And I believe that it's because I know that this is a conversation that's hard for a lot of people to really be able to open their mind to or understand. And so I'm realizing I just need to give it a nugget at a time. And so this is a newer experience for me. And I had to actually tap into it, Catherine, because I, for a little bit, thought it was because I wasn't meant to do it and that I didn't know enough and that I was being pushed back because I wasn't supposed to be on the path. And so I started to resist the journey and resist the calling. And I started to just pack it up and put it away because it wasn't of my norm of how I typically was. And I call it my incubation time of where I've just been incubated and learning and developing and growing and just like almost becoming, I don't know, building the suit of wonder that I'm meant to walk in. And now, as it's starting, I'm feeling like I've got it just put together. I'm starting to come out more and be more open and speak about it.
Yeah, and it's funny what they're showing me when you were talking about that was that it was almost like a seesaw. It's like you've been up here and now you've got to balance it back out, which is why you had to learn to pull back and learn to actually tune in more into what you needed to share, instead of, like you said, just letting your excitement roll. And sometimes I will still go in that, where I'll go in this like tangent, and then I've learned to just say, I trust whatever was meant to land will land. you
Yes.
know and I
Yes.
trust I've said what I need to say. And it's funny too, because whenever I feel like, oh, I don't know why I shared that, like that felt really icky, like, I want to pedal back, because sometimes you get sucked into the energy of something. And normally it'll just either never go to air, which is really interesting. Somehow
That
the
is.
recording gets lost, somehow it glitches, somehow it drops out. And I've just really, and I've had, okay, they're saying share this. So we had this person walking down on our land because we just bought it and people didn't realize we actually owned it. And
Okay.
I went out and I said, hey, excuse me, like, just so you know, she's like, I've lived here. And I was like, look, I can't hear you. I'm coming down to actually have a conversation with you like human rather than yelling at each other. Anyway, and then we were having this conversation and she's like, oh, can I get your phone number? Because, like, because she ended up being like a Reiki and a healer as well. I'm like, oh, this is really nice. This is really cool. Anyway, and she goes, oh, I don't have my phone on me. I said, oh, well, I'll go grab mine and I'll come back out. And then so when I came back out, I sent her a message and she's like, oh, and then her dog actually ran after my cat. So random because the cat was there the whole time. And she fell down and her phone fell out of her back pocket. And I'm like, huh,
Oh,
this is interesting. But
yeah.
then my message never got there. And I was like, how interesting. Thank you, because there was some ill will. And I feel like reflecting back now, my intuition is like she wanted your number to show that people in the neighborhood could gang up on you because, they couldn't go walk on this track, which is never a track. It was actually your property. So it was like, wow, thank you, Spirit, for protecting me with that and everything. But it was just such a chain of events. And so sometimes, if your message doesn't get there, it's because it's not meant to get there. It comes back to that timing thing that we've been
Yes.
talking about.
Yes. So true. I love that. Like, I love the statement rejection is protection because, I mean, it's
Mm.
so, so true. It's in those moments we feel rejected or we feel like things aren't working out. And it's honestly for our own protection, or it's just because we're not ready for it. There have been times where I myself have been impatient and I've pushed. I've pushed and I've pushed, and I'm like, I am making this happen. I'm determined.
Guilty.
And right? And you get in it and you're thinking, why did I decide to do this? Because nothing is okay. Everything is not working out. And then you retreat back with your tail between your legs because you realize that it's just not for you. And 2 months later, it boom is there and everything is lining up, right? And that's because you're supposed to wait for 2 months. But, I was too impatient.
100%. I'm like that at the moment because we've been trying to sell our house and we put conditions on it, right? So I was like, I'll quit my job when we sell the house. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just conditioned it. And I really
Yes,
just
you
need
did.
to quit my job because my intuition's like, you need to quit your job. It was like this non negotiable quit that came from my heart space. And I'm like, all right, I need to quit, and, then my husband was like, oh, I'll go back to work when we sell the house. So now he's had to go back to work because I've thrown a spanner in the works and quit. But I'm like, we were putting conditions on it selling and it hasn't sold just yet. But I'm also trusting that the perfect house hasn't shown up that we're going to move to in the area
Sure.
we're looking at. And even today, I was actually starting to ask, are we looking in the right area? They're like, kind
Mm,
of, you need to go look here. And I was like, yeah, but we can't afford there. You got there. And then I got, you can't afford that yet.
there
The
you go.
right house is coming. And I was like, okay, okay. So
Yeah.
again, it's all that divine timing. But I knew I delayed my timeline as soon as I put conditions on it. And we're so guilty of doing this as humans.
Sure.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll start my project when I have more money, or I'll
Yeah.
start doing this when I have this. But if we don't start walking towards it and doing the things to do it, then it's never going to happen either because you're not showing the universe you're taking the steps towards what you want to do.
So true. And it really ties into energy and emotion, right? Like when you're saying things like you're really what you're putting out there and what you're feeling is you don't believe it's possible. Like you've got that lack of belief, which is that low energy frequency, that low frequency feeling. And that's what you're putting out. And when you put that out there, that is what you're attracting back to you. I share that with my women as I'm working with them, and they'll say, this just isn't possible for me. I know this works for other women, but I just don't think that I'm strong enough to do this. Or I don't think weight loss is possible for me or transformation. And I explain to them that's the emotion you're putting out. You can say all day long, I want to lose 60 pounds. I'm determined to lose 60 pounds. But if what you feel is that it's impossible for you, what you're speaking out through your emotions is that it's not going to happen, therefore it won't. It's when you believe it and you feel it and you say, I am going to lose 60 pounds and I know I'll lose it, and not put it on a timeline and just have that faith and that knowing that it will happen. that's when all of a sudden it happens in a time frame that was far faster than you ever thought it could be.
Exactly. And I like that you bring up the weight loss example, because then it's like when you are engaged in that energy and you have that mindset, that's when then you start to make better habit choices too. And like,
Yeah.
it's like, because all you can see is this version of yourself that's 60 pounds lighter. And you're
Yeah.
like, all right, would that person have the Coke or would they go for the water?
Exactly.
Or would they get up and go to the gym, or would they hit snooze on their alarm? And this is why it's so important to know yourself so well that you can tap in, because your triggers and your flaws and your wounds are going to come up and try and self-sabotage you, because that's what happens. That's life. But you get in such good habits that you can still work through the habits even when the mind is telling you otherwise. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it so much.
Yeah,
So
I
good.
can tell you're like, yes, mindset. And and I,
Yeah.
and I feel this ties in so much with, like, you help people break out of the cycle of people pleasing, because in the end, I always say, you're the one that has to live with you, not everybody else. You're the
Yeah.
one that has to get through life with the choices that you make. And I have several clients at the moment, and they're all like that. And I still, one particular, she's always like, oh, but what will they think of me? I'm like, who cares? It's like, oh, I think I upset him. I'm like, no, don't think that way. You had to make choices that aligned for you. Like, these are big choices she's making too. And I'm like, no, you just keep coming back to what feels right for you. And it was funny because she was really struggling, because I like to empower people. I feel you're the same. So I'm
Yes.
like, I'm going to teach you how to do this, but you can't keep running back to me all the time. I'm happy to guide you, but to a point.
Right.
And I said, I can't make this decision for you. It's a massive decision. You need to go make it. I said, go for a walk, go hug a tree, reset, and just then drop into your heart when you're feeling really calm and see what the answer is. And so she got an answer completely different to what she was telling me when we were on the phone. And then she's like, all right, if this is what's meant to happen, give me a sign. And a baby ain't like white feather dropped in front of her.
Oh
And
my
she's like,
gosh. There you go.
okay,
Yeah.
there we go. That's aligned. But she was open, and she was also asking for it. But sometimes, especially when we're in that stress response, or in that, so worried about what other people are thinking of us, or whatever decision we make, the best thing I find to tell people is just go drop back into your heart. Find whatever way you can to tune everything out, whether it's go sit in nature, go, run a nice bath, whatever it might be that aligns with you as a soul. Go do that, and then tune back in, and then ask the question, because you already know the answer. You just have to find a way to get through all the noise, I like to call it, before
Yes.
you get to it.
So true. And in tying into that, that's what with just last night, I did a group coaching call with my women in my program, She Rises. And so what we recently did in our upgrade phase is that we actually met our higher self. And in the purpose of that is as you meet your higher self, it's understanding. And I took them through this visualization and what was it that she would do in like situations like this? How would she show up? How would she, her habits, her words and her thoughts and her emotions, all of that. And after we had went through that activity and that exercise, I had them journal and then do a few other activities throughout the week. And last night on the call, one of my women, she shared that she had gotten into kind of an argument with her daughter, which was something very common for them to have arguments. And in the typical time in the past, what she would have done is just retreat and she would have taken full blame, even though her daughter was in fault for it. She would take full blame, she would own it, and she would retreat and she would just shut down, close down. And that's something that she'd do over and over and over with all of her daughters. And she has four of them. So this is a
Wow.
woman that's really like hurting and shrinking and playing small and miserable in life. Last night she said, I had an altercation with my daughter. And I said, okay, well, talk to me about it. What happened? She said, I stood my ground and I asked her, why is it that you feel that you need to behave this way? And why do you think it's okay that you make me feel like I am the problem in this situation? And I said, how did that feel? She goes, it felt so liberating. And I said, and where did you find that? She goes, well, I paused like you told me to, and I asked my higher self, how should I deal with this? And that's what came forward. So I just did it before I lost the courage. And I said, what was the response? She said, my daughter apologized and we had a really civil conversation. And days after now, she said she's speaking to me in a way that she's very rarely ever spoken to me.
Change
It,
the
right?
story.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just so
And
fantastic
And
when we
Tara,
start.
I love the pause because people don't realize how powerful the pause is. And
Yes.
even I remember listening, it just popped up on my Instagram feed, listening to this person, and he was like a very powerful business person. And they said, oh, what happens if someone insults you in the boardroom? He goes, I stay silent. And they go, what do you mean? He goes, I just stay silent. And he goes, and two things happen. Either we move on, he goes, or they start to double guess themselves, second guess what they said, start to apologize profusely, and then I've got the power back in the whole situation. So he goes, the
Yes.
power of silence is so underestimated. Even, in sales things, like the power of the pause after you make an offer because you have to let it percolate. But it's the same with any interactions. You need to pause because otherwise you'll react instead of coming from a place of your heart to move forward.
Yes. Yeah. Allow yourself to respond rather than react. So true.
Exactly.
I love that. The power of the pause is so significant. It's been one of the greatest things that I've learned, one of the most difficult things, because we actually talked about that last night too, which that doesn't surprise you at all, Catherine, because you're like, yeah, I know, I get you. But we talked about that with all my ladies. I'm like, because one of my gals is like, one of my friends was really being offensive to me, and I wish I could just be quick-witted and pop off and just say, and I'm like, that's not your makeup. Don't want to be that because I said, what would happen if you actually did pop off and say something back in a very snarky way? She goes, well, I'd feel so bad. I said, exactly. That's not why you are who you are. That's why you are who you are and why you don't do that. I said, I, on the other hand, could pop off in a minute second. And probably, 6 months later, I'll feel really guilty about it and wish I would have. I said, so I've had to learn to pause and really take it in and ask myself, does this pertain to me? And if it doesn't, let it go. And it
Mm.
has freed up my mind, my body, my soul of so much garbage.
I know. One of my favorite things that I've learned is you can have that projection back. Thank you very much. Because
Yes.
a lot of the time when people say negative things to us, it's a reflection of what's happening in them. And it's a reflection. And so when they say that, I'm like, what is going on in you that has caused you to say that? But you can have that back because I don't feel that way about myself at all. Thank you very much. So the power of this is why it's so important, right? To know yourself and
Yes.
know who you are and own it. And your identity will keep shifting. And I feel that's really important for people listening that you're not a stagnant being. You are always evolving. You're always
Yes.
growing. Even what you shared for your last 2 years, like you went into incubation, but you were still growing, right? You were still in that cocoon, ready to come into this butterfly, and I guess
Yep.
that's really important to remember because sometimes you'll go, but that wasn't the plan. I had a different plan, but now you've evolved and you have a new plan. But in the end, if you tap into your mission, your vision of what you want for your life, it's still there, but the plans just change slightly because we change and we evolve. And this is why the timing's so important because, like you said, if you got that message from your sister or your dad tried to do the same thing, you wouldn't have noticed it at all. You wouldn't have been ready. You would have just put it down to, oh, what a coincidence. This reminds me of dad. Move on.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Instead
Yes.
of, look at these pennies and what are these visions? And, so it all comes back to divine timing.
It really does. So true. All of it. I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So,
And I know we could talk all day, but I'm conscious we're going to start to wind up our time together. So I asked the guests that come on the show, Tara, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
oh my gosh. Because I focus my work on women, I will speak from the space of women. If I could change or heal something in the world, it would be how women view themselves. and how that view affects how they show up in life. And they keep themselves in a box that they don't belong in. I think of it like the porcelain dolls that get stuck in this glass box and they're put on a dresser and just left there collecting dust. And every once in a while, they're dusted off and they're admired and they're maybe held. But in the end, they're put back in the box and they're kept for safekeeping. And that's how I see myself for many years of my life and how I see a lot of women. And if I could heal anything, and that's what I'm working to do, is getting women out of their boxes, owning their voice, being their authentic self, daring to know that they don't have to ask for permission in order to live life large and to be their truest self. And that when they are their truest self, that's where they tap into their power and where they make the difference in this world. And with that, I will say, I would also accompany it with helping women know that no calling is greater than the other. I am an intuitive healer. You're an intuitive healer. I'm also a motivational speaker and I'm loud and I'm out there and I do stuff. But there are women who knit quietly and they don't make a noise and they have a mission and they have a story and they impact the world. So that would be what I would heal and what I'm working to heal in this world.
Oh, Tara, you're just speaking my language. I love meeting kindred souls. I really do. Because I say, and when I started doing this work and channeling for people, I always got shown they were in boxes. They always were stuck in boxes and they had to punch their way out and create, instead of a box, a bubble, but the bubble always expanded and contracted because it's still good to have aware of where your energy wants to go and where you want to keep it in check. But it was just this image of these boxes and then punching their way out. It's like, you can't put me in a box. And I love that you have the porcelain doll in the box because when you were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. That's what we do. That's what we do.
It is.
Yes, exactly. Everyone has a unique story and everyone has something really powerful to share. And it doesn't matter if you're just a mum, because mums have so many superpowers that we don't even talk to. That's a whole other episode. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, there is no such thing as just a mom. Literally. That could probably make me pop off really quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though I've worked through that, to not do that, be like, just a what?
Exactly. Exactly. And if people want to come find you, Tara, or come work with you, where can they find you?
I'm going to send everybody to my website. That's going to be where you'll find all the information you need to know or want to know about me, as well as where you can find me on my social media platforms and how to work with me. And that's www.tara-Wiskow.com.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to put it in that show notes because
Thank
then
you.
everyone, if they're driving, it's there. You can connect with Tara. And I'm sure they can Google you and it will come up anyway. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, that is true too. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tara. This has been such an amazing conversation, as we knew it would be. And I'm very grateful for you sharing your journey and also just your experiences of empowering women, which is such a needed thing. Oh, it's not just women, but that's your niche and that's cool.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for this time. I've loved our conversation. I love your energy and just the connection that we've had. I really appreciate our time together.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.